decision to fluoridate water to the state. The governor says it's about giving people choices.
It's forced medication when they're jamming fluoride into your water supply.
Dental groups and health organizations say water fluoridation in the U.S. is safe, and they point out accessing other fluoride options may be difficult for low-income people. The Florida Dental Association issued a statement. They say fluoridation is a naturally occurring mineral, not a medication, and is responsible for a 25% reduction in tooth decay in children and adults. I'm Tristan Wood.
Rain in the forecast today in Northeast Florida.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Walton Family Foundation, working to create access to opportunity for people and communities by tackling tough social and environmental problems. More information is at waltonfamilyfoundation.org.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, with federal health sites increasingly being scrubbed or disabled, where can you look for reliable medical information? We're talking about it today, along with the latest medical headlines during our house call with Dr. Joe. Later in the program, we'll tell you about a free house cleaning service to help so-called NICU families reduce at least one life stressor. But first, I'm joined as I am each month by our own Dr. Joe Sirven, Mayo neurologist and host of the WJCT program and podcast, What's Health Got to Do with It? He visits us for a monthly house call to talk medical news and to take your calls and questions. You can reach us at 904-549-2937 or First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. Dr. Joe, thanks for being here.
Oh, and it is always a pleasure. I can't believe it's May, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Wow, I know. I can't believe it's been a month since we last did this. I want to start with a medical headline, that is something that has been developing and is ongoing. We know that soon after the president took office, thousands of federal health websites were taken offline, and a lot of them returned, but some of those after court orders. But they came back with information, some cases that had been removed or altered, some sections deleted in the case of teen sexual health, for instance. So people are wondering, where can they get reliable information? Where are you and where are your colleagues looking for this information? Are they still looking to these federal websites?
We still look at federal websites and just see what's being said there. Oftentimes we're looking at them to see is there some radical departure in terms of what we're thinking and telling our patients. But so far, other than what you've pointed out, where there have been these elements of almost misinformation in that CDC vaccine example you gave, we're still seeing that there's still good data that's being put out there, but with a little caveat, an asterisk. If something sounds unusual, different, what it forces us to do is look for other websites and other sources of information. Those other sources of information are now turning out to be university or well-known medical institutions or specialty societies, like where the OBGYN specialty society, if you want to look for women's health, or in neurology or something along those lines. We look at our own society for the American Academy of Neurology, things of that sort. So we're turning into that. And to be honest with you, there is precedent. I always remember during COVID, although the CDC was a good source of information, I will remind everyone that most of us were tuned into the Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health to get the latest news because they seem to have a nice way of presenting the data, and most of us caught our information there. So in some ways, I feel like we're back to those days when there was a little bit of flying blind on the government side. And then we ended up going to a university, a school of public health that has credible experts to kind of guide us what's going on the ground.
It's interesting that you mentioned like the School of Obstetrics and Gynecology, as one resource, because there have been, certain topics that have become more difficult to find on federal websites, particularly things that deal with birth control or abortion information. But one thing I thought was really interesting that was reported on recently was the Cleveland Clinic, which has created this library that specifically aims to vet social media viral trends, TikTok health trends, things like, cod liver oil for the
Right.
measles, but they're basically seeing what is surfacing on popular social media sites and then either debunking them or validating them, but at least kind of going through the science and helping people discern what's real and what's not.
My complete compliments to the Cleveland Clinic for coming up with this exceptional idea. This is a huge area because one of the things that I've been noticing, and I think a lot of people are, is that um, influencers have really gotten into the world of health and wellness. Now, it used to be more in the wellness area, but now it really has gotten into health advice. As I read a recent New York Times article where one of the more popular influencers is a 17-year-old high school student who tells people, I feel better when I do this. Some of it you have to applaud because it's healthy eating, but people are taking advice from a 17-year-old high school student who has a fairly nice following. On one level, again, good,
But no medical
but
training.
no medical training. And it just tells us now we have to kind of walk into this because the traditional routes of information clearly in the health world have people are getting into this in a way that we have to be a little bit more careful, especially if we're taking advice
Yeah.
from them.
And for vaccines in particular, I know that a couple of sites, one, the healthychildren.org, which is run by the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the Vaccine Education Center by the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, really working to try to make sure that parents have the information that they need about childhood vaccines, because that is, when most of us are receive those life-saving vaccinations.
I love the one at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia that is run by a very former head of vaccine development, Dr. Paul Offit. It has experts in the vaccine world that are very credible, well known. Even the World Health Organization utilizes kind of has kind of given their seal of approval on this to just give you a sense of like these are who are going to fill the blank. It reminds me of a scene in the original Jurassic Park where the guy says when things start going awry, well, nature always finds a way. Well, we're going to fill this vacuum. It may not be the CDC. I hope it remains to serve as credible information, but it's going to be other folks who are going to provide the good information to show what is really going on and what we can do to keep ourselves healthy and in a good place, really.
If you're just joining us, I'm speaking with our own Dr. Joe Sirven. He's here for his monthly house call to answer your healthcare questions. You can give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can email firstcoastconnect at wjct.org. And if you don't want to use your first or last name, that's fine. Just let us know. We're also, of course, talking the latest medical headlines. And one thing that was in the news this week, Dr. Joe, that you drew my attention to was this study that found 17 ways that you can reduce your risk of stroke, dementia, and depression all at the same time.
I love this study. So this is one of those areas where it isn't doom and gloom. This is something that we all can work on, and it's proactive to help prevent three of the biggest conditions: stroke, depression, and cognitive decline. All, as you said, all together, because what these researchers did is they took out lots of studies that have looked at each of these conditions individually, and they try to see where things overlap. And lo and behold, and to no surprise, they overlap significantly for a lot of things. So, couple things that I'd start off with is managing your blood pressure and keeping your blood glucose or blood sugar low, like preventing diabetes essentially, end up being some of the biggest things that you can do. And it all has to do with preserving the small blood vessels that feed the brain. The same organ that causes stroke, same one that you think with, the same one that you feel with, depression, stroke, cognitive decline, all share the same almost mechanisms by which the problems occur.
Which is these small blood vessels in the brain.
Exactly. So they're affected by these lifestyle things, and those lifestyle things are like blood pressure, blood sugar, high cholesterol. So if we start with managing your blood pressure, making sure it's good, knowing what it is as a starting point. Number two, getting your blood sugar controlled. meaning avoiding the sweets, trying to prevent diabetes where you can. That's where nutrition comes in. And then there's a whole host of other factors that we can do that sound a lot like how you keep your heart healthy, your kidneys healthy. In other words, it's just part of the same system, if you will. It's holistic. And that's what I loved about this.
It was, to your point, they found, managing blood pressure, managing blood sugar were really, had sort of the most
Yes,
significant impact. But they found that there was this sort of reinforcing architecture with these different lifestyle changes that if you improve one, you're improving these other things and these other outcomes.
absolutely. One of the things that I love to to prevent cognitive decline, so many people are always asking, how do I make sure that I do everything I can to keep my brain working as long as I can, as healthy as it can? And what came up is keeping your brain active in two ways cognitively, always working on puzzles or something that's just a little harder for you to do.
Or
Uh,
even just reading, they say, right?
exactly. Ask yourself a good book group. The next piece is we're human, which means that we're social animals and trying to keep loneliness at bay. And if you want to do those cognitive things, doing it in a group setting, a club, something along those lines that seems to be very helpful for kind of hitting two pieces of trying to preserve your cognition. And that's something any of us can do. The idea of kind of hidden away in our phones or something along those lines is not the best thing, but connecting, human connection, those things are also a huge element. Then it goes into the other stuff, which is getting sleep, trying to manage stress. Those are elements that helps for all of these conditions in overall.
And that human interaction, as a way to maximize the results that you're getting. So for instance, if you're trying to lose weight and you're walking to do it, if you can do it with a friend, that those by combining those, you're almost accelerating their impact.
Exactly. And that's what's nice is that it's not just for one condition, it's for multiple conditions. And that's why I really like this because it was so proactive. It gave us actionable information of things any of us can do without having to go see someone like me or any doctor or touch the healthcare system if you don't want to. This is just part of life that keeps things going, and that is a type of work that I love when it comes out in medical research because it is truly information we can all use.
Yeah, and one of the recommendations also is that the time to begin any of those is right now because
Absolutely.
the time to make those changes isn't when you're an older person, but really, as young as you can be.
Absolutely. So I applaud anyone if you're starting as a kid, high school, whatever. That's the time. It's almost like when you're setting up retirement accounts, they say start early.
Right.
The same is true here. We all have a retirement account for brain health and brain function, and the earlier you start, the better you'll be with it.
We're talking to Dr. Joe Mayo, neurologist and the host of What's Health Got to Do with It, and taking your calls and questions. We have a call from William on the South Side. Good morning, William. Go ahead.
Good morning, and it's great, this conversation. I really appreciate it. I was a former physical education teacher and computer teacher at a couple of schools here in Jacksonville, and there was a program provided by Nemours Children's Hospital called How the Body Works, and it was animated examples of actually cartoonish how the body actually worked, and those were great examples for from elementary to middle school students to teach them how the body actually works. And they were a little, geeky and quirky, but the kids got the gist of the information. And I'm glad the doctor brought up the information, supporting youth, teen, and young adults learning early. My question to him is, how can parents continue to encourage this in their children? Because the earlier they learn, the better they are as adults. And thanks for the information.
Hi,
Thanks, William.
I love your comment. First of all, I would say for parents, the big thing I would say is almost you have to serve as the model for this. You can't, tell kids, make sure you eat all your vegetables while you're having, the burger while they're eating the vegetables. It won't work out that way. So you have to model the behavior. In other words, bringing everyone in, activity, turn the phones off at some point so you have that connection, go outside. or kind of have that encourage that socialization, if you will. Those are the type of things that I would say are great. As to the program, you said, I love that stuff. It's funny. I wish they had done a Schoolhouse Rock for health,
Yeah.
because I could still know pieces from my memories of that. This is the type of stuff that programs I think can really make a difference, if you will.
Yeah, and, parents can also take that opportunity when they're modeling to sort of incorporate to use it for their own reinforcement, right? They know they need to
Exactly.
eat better, and they can also kind of give that benefit to their kids by showing that they are.
Right. I mean, ultimately, we have to walk the walk if you want your kids to be in that same place of good health, if you will.
So we sort of mentioned, cognitive decline. There was a piece in the news, not so much about dementia, but about a brain cancer that is being suffered by a pretty well-known singer named Michael Bolton. He's in his 70s now, but he, had a number of big songs, probably during the 80s more,
Yeah.
90s. Um, so he's been diagnosed with glioblastoma. Tell us about that.
Yeah, glioblastoma is a very serious form of brain cancer. And I bring it up because it's another prominent individual, formerly Senators Edward Kennedy, Senator John McCain, and many others have had uh, glioblastoma. It is one of the more difficult cancers to treat, brain cancers to treat. It's a malignant one, but it's another reminder of, we need to do something about this, not just because a famous person got it, but it just reminds us of the plight of, here's one of the cancers that continues to grow, especially in older age, and it still has a very difficult or low survival rate related to it. And our hope is that maybe that this helps to bring about even better research, because even if we figure out how to manage a very difficult cancer like this, because it's almost like the brain's version of pancreatic cancer, they're very difficult to manage, and symptoms, when they present, that means that things have already spread to a certain point. It's just another area of where we need to really focus our work on just how to kind of get certain cancers, all cancers, if we can, at a place that it's more of a chronic disease as opposed to some type of sentence, if you will. And this was just a reminder of that in a very prominent form.
One thing that was interesting was this choice that he said he's made, which is he didn't want to know his prognosis, which I thought was really fascinating. You and I were talking about a time when doctors wouldn't tell
Right.
patients even their diagnosis, much less their prognosis, if they had a cancer, and that obviously has changed. But what do you think about that choice?
Well, first of all, it's up to each his own in terms of decision making, but it brings up, one of the way that we've been taught is that if you have a diagnosis, well, it's your diagnosis. So number one, we always want, as for me speaking as a physician, you always want to show that and kind of always give that diagnosis to the person who comes to you. Um, it's a question that comes up often, even in the world of even a more common condition that's difficult to manage, and that is like Alzheimer's disease and things of that sort. Some people have said, well, now that there may be blood tests that can detect it, I don't want to go down that road and get it, because until there's a cure, I don't want to know this. Um, I think, one of the things is that by going down the road and kind of facing it head on, it's not an easy road, but on the other hand, there's information to be gleaned to help others,
Mm.
if you will. I get the psychology of this. I get that this is very difficult, and I respect it. But it's again another reminder to me. I look at it like, well, this is just something to spur us all on, to try to find the cure, the treatment. We had a recent show on What's Health Got to Do with It, on a frontotemporal dementia. It's the same type of dementia that Bruce Willis has, with this young lady who found that she has the gene for it. And one of the things about
Mm.
it is that she is now working tirelessly in her life to find the cure, so to help her own family who also has the gene. those are the type of stories I think that kind of come in terms of flips the script on its own. But not everyone is like that, and I get that, and I respect it. But I'm not saying it's easy. But I do know that we need to tell people when they have it, whether they choose to action on and explore it. I leave it up to them.
I wanted to address a couple of emails that we got. One is from Ricardo, and he says, a very trustworthy and easy to read and follow source. Oh, this is a source that I believe you like a lot, the Your Local Epidemiologist
Yes.
Substack by Caitlin Jetelina, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
And so you've actually recommended that to me in the past. It's a really great, it's a great resource.
I love that epidemiology one. In this particular Substack, they put out beautiful maps of where are in this case, I've been following the measles outbreak in Texas. Well, now Texas, New Mexico, Kansas, and all, very closely in that Substack. She gives great information. She's an epidemiologist. She lists, not only does she kind of tackle what's going on in measles, but just putting out what's happening in other infectious diseases like tick disease or pollen counts, anywhere where there's maps and numbers, and getting a sense of that. And that's another, like, that's a very good, reliable source. She tells us where one thing I like about her is that she tells us where she is getting her data from, where her sources are. And in that regard, you can trust it. It's more transparent as opposed to I believe, or something along those lines. So great recommendation from that email. I completely agree.
We also had a question from a caller who said she wants to know why we aren't hearing about the updated COVID vaccine.
COVID has one of the things about the COVID is that is kind of in a no man's land right now within the world of the CDC as they figure out what their recommendations are. I know that they have put new rules in for making new vaccine recommendations to have placebo-controlled trials, and that means that you have to compare what's out there on on a yearly basis, if I understood this correctly, the current vaccine against an inert substance like saline. Those cost millions of dollars to do a trial yearly on that. In fact, what we've done before, it's like it's built on what we know. How that gets interpreted, what's a placebo-controlled trial that's acceptable, is in the eyes of the officials at FDA, CDC, because they make recommendations. And that's why we're not hearing about what is going to happen. In fact, I don't know exactly what the booster recommendation is going to be for the coming year, because they're trying to figure out what is the burden of proof for vaccines, because they want to focus on the safety of them, according to the government reports. So we're all staying tuned on that one.
A related question about mRNA vaccines. Judy emailing, I have encountered medical professionals that are leery of mRNA generated vaccines, which is the kind that is used in the COVID vaccine. I understand the cellular process for mRNA to protein generation, but I do wonder if any segment of our population should be cautious of mass-produced vaccines.
I think that at the end of the day, it's anything that we take in our bodies is always a risk-benefit calculation. mRNA vaccines, I think, is a huge breakthrough because it got us help very quickly for a condition, COVID in this case, that was in essence, killing millions of people overall. Having said that, nothing in medicine, whether it's a little baby aspirin to even those lovely supplements, is completely innocent. So it's always going to be a risk benefit. There are going to be some people that are going to have a side effect to vaccines, and that has to be factored in. The key is, who are those people that are going to have those elements so that they know this is what we need to do in those cases, like almost personalizing that element. And so what's hard about this is, like, we give a lot of recommendations at a public level, but at the individual level, there may be a slightly different answer because of your makeup, your element. So to say that they're all dangerous, I wouldn't say that. I'd say that for some people, there may be problems, and that is something that we have to figure out with, again, obviously more research and more understanding of how we personalize that. That's what I hope the future gets us to, is predicting who's the right and wrong person for this. But vaccines, I still think, are good, especially against the risk of some of these miserable diseases.
Yeah. When we were talking about the glioblastoma, you were talking about, our need to look for advancements in cancer research, and one that's been really seemingly advancing quickly and with a lot of promise is
Yes.
immunotherapy. First of all, explain what that is and why that looks to be such a promising avenue.
One of the things that I think is super exciting in terms of the management of cancers, and we cover this a lot in our show, What's Health Got to Do with It, anytime we do a cancer treatment, is that immune based therapies, that is, harnessing your own immune system to fight off the cancer, to fight off the bug, to fight off the condition, seems to be really the big trend in terms of where medicine is going. So, one of the hopes in cancer, and it's a hope that's becoming reality, it's just going to take time, is can you find a way that you can take your own, let's say you have a tumor of some sort, if you go see the cancer center, the cancer doctor, and basically they take those cancer cells and then they develop whatever the treatments that we have to fight your cancer cells and then deliver that medication to you. That's harnessing your own immune system, training your system to identify those cells as bad cells. They need to be killed. That is really the holy grail, because then it's you doing the fighting without, hopefully, the side effects, the problems that often come with these treatments. So the hope, as I talked about glioblastoma, that's where the hope is that they develop those immune-based treatments that can basically attack that. But that's happening for almost all cancer types. And that's the excitement in the field, is that when we get to a place that your own immune system is doing most of the work to do that treatment, if you will.
And so if successful at some point, we could hope that they will help people avoid surgery, avoid things like the need for chemo and radiation.
That is that would be the holy grail, to get us to a place where this is really replaced all of the things that we typically think of when someone gives a cancer diagnosis, the surgery, the radiation, the cancer, all those adjuvant therapies, that extra therapy that you need, that this would be the replacement for it. That's where we hope to get to. But that takes time, money, research, and coordination of people who believe in that.
Um, this, recently a big study published by the New England Journal of Medicine about immunotherapy. And I just want to at least briefly touch on, there have been lately these threats being made against medical journals by by federal prosecutors, specifically the New England Journal of Medicine, but also other really prestigious medical journals that suggest that the topics that they're covering are unsuitable or perhaps biased, and making inquiries about whether there should be some sort of federal enforcement or intervention on these independent journals.
I think that what a terrible idea. The fact that New England Journal or Journal of American Medical Association or any of the others are going to have some type of criminal oversight. That's just well, that's just crazy, to be honest with you. Having said that, is anything perfect? No. Is it criminal? I think that that's just overshooting it, if you will.
And I mean, we should say that a medical journal, just like any newspaper or news outlet, has the full protections of the First Amendment. And so
Exactly.
content based decisions should be really outside of that purview from the federal government standpoint.
Ultimately, the way journals work is that they receive articles that are submitted by different medical groups to get looked at whether they can publish it. They go through a rigorous peer review system. If they meet the peer review system, they get put into the queue to kind of see when they're published, and then they're released. That's pretty much the way that these things work. Who controls what gets in there? I mean, I can send an article in, you can send an article in. It just has to hit the peer review system of that it is met the rigor that is necessary to kind of fall under that rule. How this gets into prosecution, that we're in a different, as Doris said, we're not in Kansas anymore,
Right,
obviously.
right. Well, it's something that we will be keeping an eye on with you, Dr. Joe Sirven. Thanks so much for coming on today and answering our viewers' questions, listeners' questions. Really appreciate it.
And I love the conversation. Can't wait for June.
All right. Up next, easing the practical strain of premature births. We'll tell you about intensive care can be a terrifying and even traumatic experience. Having help can have a tremendous impact, even for something as basic as returning to a clean house. Here to tell us about a local service that does that for free is Jennifer Sesniak. She's the founder of I See You NICU. Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you for having us. Hi.
Daniella Florence also joins us. She's a board member of the group and owner of Florence Family Cleaning Services. Good morning, Daniella.
Good morning.
So I want to start with you, Jennifer. You firsthand experienced what it's like to, have a child that has to be placed in intensive care after being born. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like for you and how that led you to form this organization?
Yes. So I had a picture perfect pregnancy up until 28 weeks. I wasn't feeling good. I knew something was off. My husband, it was Taco Tuesday. I remember it like it was yesterday. And he's like, well, I don't want a hangry wife. So let's get you some food in your system before we call the doctor and see what's going on. Go to the hospital at Baptist South, get everything checked out. Turns out it was amniotic fluid. So my waterhead broke. And from then on, it was a roller coaster ride. It was transferred by ambulance downtown. They stopped my labor, but the the idea of hospitals gave me the heebie-jeebies. So I went back in labor 5 days later and had him at 28 weeks and 6 days.
And so you were a little before 28 weeks when this happened. And when you say the hospitals, they were saying you had to stay in the
I
hospital.
had to stay in the hospital until he was born. So whether he was born that day or the goal was to keep him inside until 32 weeks, which clearly didn't happen. But the longer they're inside, the more they have time to get their lungs right and develop the best of their ability so that they have a better chance once they are born and spend time in the NICU.
And so this obviously caught both you and your husband by
Oh,
surprise.
entirely. We didn't have a baby bag. The baby's room wasn't ready. We're like, wait, we're supposed to have 3 months.
Yeah.
What is happening right now?
So that obviously coupled by a lot of anxiety and uncertainty because you've got a
100%.
child. How large was your baby?
He was born at 2.5 pounds. So he was very small the first time we saw him. Um, I guess nothing can really prepare you to see your baby that you don't get to hold after you first deliver them in a box connected by wires and tubes and all of the things. Feeling kind of helpless and truly the NICU experience, if you let it, can break you, which it did for quite some time.
Yeah. And so you're dealing with all of this, emotion and fear, and there's a supportive group there at the hospital. But what kind of supports were available to you outside of that setting, and what made you start thinking at some point about trying to create a safety net of sorts?
Well, truly, the nurses were our safety net. They were our therapists. They were there not only taking care of our babies, but I feel like they were taking care of us too. Um, when you're in the moment, you don't really think about resources. You're just trying to make it through the next hour sometimes. So the lack of support and feeling really alone once you got home, because really you have the support of those doctors, you have the army to help you and your baby, and then one day you're graduated and thrust out into the real world and you don't have any of that. Sometimes with medical equipment. So Logan came home after 81 days, but we called it the R2D2. He came home on oxygen and an apnea monitor. So we had to learn how to be nurses on our own when we went home.
Wow. So even once you get home, there's this long period of kind of recovery and education. You're learning how to, manage your life at home.
Right.
At what point did you start thinking about creating this particular service?
The cleaning service
Mm-hmm.
was actually, we think about so many different things and ways we can help in the hospital, of putting programs in the hospital. There's a lot more resources now than there was when I experienced it. But Daniela actually approached me with the deep cleaning one for our house. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have this would have changed my life coming home from the NICU. And I'm a very, very clean person.
Yeah.
But when you're in the NICU experience, all home life goes out the window. You're just truly focused on that baby and getting through to the next day and taking care of the essentials and home, eating, sleeping. That's it. So that's where
Daniela,
that comes to
yeah.
play.
How did you enter this space? I mean, what was your introduction to it?
With the program, well, Jen talked about what she'd been through. And I was like, the first thing I thought is, did you have someone to help you? Like once you got home or before you got home? Do you have any cleaning service? How is your life? Like, and how was your life when you had a newborn baby whose immune system was just compromised and you had to go home and do chores and take care of yourself and the baby and everything? And she was like, well, I never have cleaning service before. And that just came through. And I was like, Jen, we should do something to support every mom that goes through that because um, not just the immune system, but moms don't have time to think about the chores at home if they're thinking about just surviving through the night. Like Jen said, the first hour of the day is just my baby's going through this. I have to change. I have to, give him a bath. But if you didn't have time to clean that bathtub, that's a concern because you're just exposing your child to, the environment around
Right.
you,
And to
right?
your point, these kids are coming
So,
home with sometimes
yes,
other conditions that could be compromised by an immune
already
reaction.
challenging because, newborn babies that are healthy and going home, they already have a compromised immune system that's building up, that's getting used to the environment. And when they're preemies, it's even worse. And it's like a 50% chance that babies who have been through the NICU unit just come back and are readmitted to the hospital
Oh, wow.
on their first 2 years. So that's a concern that's not just for today, but, in the future. How's the recovery going? Are they exposed to someone or something that could, get them worse?
And so part of your cleaning service is you offer, you know, a kind of a clean cleaning service, right? One that pays
Yeah.
attention to things like making sure that, the chemicals that you're using and the materials that you're using won't create additional problems.
Yeah, are really having the effect that we want, that is like sanitizing the whole house. It's not just a wipe down. It doesn't do good just to like, okay, I'm going to dust the blinds. It's fine. But the dust is all around the house. So things that moms or people who don't have that regular, maintenance flow going on, they don't realize that they're not doing enough.
Mhm.
And with my background, with that experience all in healthcare, because, I have the pharmacy background, I'm like, these agents are just, potent, um, just increasing the risk of,
Right.
making the baby even sicker.
And so you
So,
kind of had this idea, this
yeah,
moment where you thought, well, this would be a terrific service. But I mean, it's a big step from thinking about it to actually
it
creating
is.
it. And
I've done this before for like cancer patients. So people who have been going through like other situations and just talking with Jen, it was like, well, babies, come on. That's another step. We have to help those families as well. So cancer patients are usually, they develop like a resistance, like with, mobility, or they have to rest. They have, a lot of issues
Mhm.
and they can't do the same thing. They can't clean the house. So I've been coming in for months and doing just, free cleanings for people I know just to help them out, to support. We have the communities, neighbors, everybody that has cleaning service, like pitch in and, hey, let's help this family, through this time. And
So this
we
was just sort of an expansion of what you'd been doing.
expansion, yeah,
Mhm.
but it was like something that, we should have just done before.
Yeah. And so you begin this. How are you communicating, Jennifer, the services that you all provide? How do you connect with patients or with families with kids in the NICU?
Well, we work with a lot of the NICU nurses, discharge nurses, social workers, spiritual care teams, so they get the word out because really in the NICU, your mind is truly there. Even going home, a lot of the time, you don't look at the paper discharge paperwork they give you until weeks later.
Mm.
So it's having that personal touch of the knowledge of the nurses coming and saying, "Hey, you're going home soon. Have you applied to this program?" So it's a word of mouth, really, from the staff itself to make sure that they apply.
And so they kind of are your agent. They tell people that this exists,
Mhm.
and then there's sort of an application process. And so how does that work, and who really is eligible?
So we encourage everyone to apply, whether we can accommodate everyone or not. The data that we get from that application can help us apply for grants to really expand the program because without those numbers and truly, we know that it's needed, but we need the backup to prove that it's needed. So we encourage everyone to apply.
Hmm. And is there an eligibility threshold, or is it just if you can do it, you'll accommodate?
If we can do it, we'll accommodate. So that's why we're reaching out to the community to get this started and really truly launched to get the funds to be able to help as many NICU families coming home as possible.
Hmm.
We did some research on it based on the cost of deep cleanings of homes that if we were able to raise $150,000, we could clean one NICU family's house every day for an entire year. And that's tremendous. I know it sounds like a big number, but to make an impact on
You're
that
thinking like
many
a different
families.
family,
Yes,
right?
every
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
could clean
365.
365 families'
Gotcha.
homes.
Gotcha.
And in reality, that's a very small percentage of the NICUs in the Northeast Florida area.
Sure. We did get a message from Tiffany on Facebook saying, thank you for sharing your story, Jen. But I do want to just mention there is an upcoming event, well, July, an upcoming event that you all are doing to raise funds. And there's, a couple ways that people can support the program. So what is the best way for someone to get involved?
To get involved, well, they can't really clean, but you can get involved in different ways, whether it's
I'm thinking primarily if they want to
primarily for
support
clean.
the organization, like whether through the donation or the
Okay.
event.
Yes. Donating or bring your time. We do a lot of handmade give back opportunities for the NICUs. Currently, we're actually dropping off NICU mom bracelets to the hospitals for Mother's Day because, as I know, I've spent holiday and Christmas in the NICU, so it was very hard to spend your first holiday with your baby in the hospital. So we support them for Mother's Day, and then we transition to NICU Strong for graduation kits, as well as NICU Awareness Month, which comes in September. So if you don't have the funds to help support our groups, there's plenty of ways to get
All
involved.
right.
Physically.
The website is ICUNICU.org. There's an event, as we said, a luau in July. And thank you, Jennifer Sesniak and Daniella Florence. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you for
Thank you for
having
having
us.
us.
All right. Up next, when tackling arthritis is a family affair.
Congaree & Penn, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpenn.com. AEG presents Hauser, The Rebel is Back Tour. The Croatian cellist brings his blend of classical, pop, and rock music to the St. Augustine Amphitheater on Sunday, May 18th at 8 p.m. Information at theamp.com.
The Electro Lounge invites you to the Brian Gooding Planetarium at Mosh, May 30th, pairing the best sounds of the Electro Lounge with the captivating and immersive visuals of a trip through the cosmos. It's a journey that will be both intimate and expansive, scientifically rigorous yet surreal. Join us for an experience that will redefine what it means to explore the universe with music. Visit wjct.org/events for information and tickets.
On the next Fresh Air, how the Trump family's business ventures capitalize on the president's position and stand to directly benefit him. This includes foreign deals from luxury hotels in Dubai and Serbia to the Trump cryptocurrency company. New York Times reporter Eric Lipton tells us why these deals pose unprecedented conflicts of interest. Join us.
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
It's been one of the brightest stories in clean energy. Solar is expected to make up 81% of all new power added to the electric grid this year. But clouds loom in the form of tariffs, rising costs, government subsidies in flux, and more. Can solar continue its rapid rise? Next time on 1A.
Today starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, for my next guest, the work to raise awareness about arthritis is literally a joint effort. Here to tell us about it is Dr. Swati Shah. She's the chapter leader for the Association of Women in Rheumatology. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. We're also joined by her daughters, Nishi and Nia Shah, both students at the Bowles School and youth ambassadors for the Arthritis Foundation. Nia, tell me, you got involved in this initially because you had an aunt with rheumatoid arthritis. Can you first of all just tell us what that is and, a little bit about how seeing someone you love impacted by it drove your advocacy?
Yeah, so my aunt was a very bubbly person and she was always smiling and she had the most beautiful soul. But as she got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, we slowly saw her smile start to fade away and it was difficult to watch. And recently, after she passed, we wanted to find a way to really get involved with arthritis so we can help other families not try to feel the pain that we had to feel and, soften their grieving a little bit. So that's when we kind of found out about the Arthritis Foundation and we decided to get involved.
And Nishi, your aunt, this was, a few years ago that this happened. Your sister notes that, kind of impacted how she was feeling. What were the symptoms that she was experiencing? Because not everybody's familiar with what rheumatoid arthritis is and does.
So yeah, it was she tried to hide it as best she could, but it was mainly like pain and she was just in constant pain because it causes like inflammation in your joints and ligaments around your joints. And yeah, it was just mainly the symptoms were pain.
And so is this an autoimmune disease, Dr. Shah?
So most of the arthritis they come under autoimmune diseases, except osteoarthritis, which is the wear and tear arthritis. But most of the arthritis are autoimmune disease, and it's an umbrella term we use for lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, juvenile arthritis, Lyme disease. All of those come under the term of arthritis.
And there are really dozens of types of arthritis?
More than 100 types of arthritis, and they basically cause a lot of inflammation in surrounding the tissues, soft tissues, connective tissues, joints, synovium, and causes variety of symptoms, joint pain and fatigue and foggy brain, loss of difficulty concentration. It can cause a lot of economic impact to the family and friends and the whole country. It's a very serious disease, way more serious and costlier than most of us realize.
And so you talk about what it causes in terms of symptoms. What causes arthritis?
That's a great question. So arthritis, if we're talking about the autoimmune arthritis, it's a genetic disease. So your genes may have susceptibility, or your genes may turn in your lifetime to be susceptible to cause arthritis from the triggers. Usual triggers are chemicals, viruses, infections, stress, trauma, surgeries. So something triggers your genes to cause inflammation unnecessary, and that's how it starts.
That seems to be a little different than I think a lot of us, Naya, think about. Nia, how we think about it, because a lot of people think it's just sort of an old age disease. You get arthritis as you get older; it's sort of an inevitable thing that happens. But the idea that it's connected to certain, either environmental factors, genetic factors, or even, kind of traumatic triggers is, I think, surprising for a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people think that arthritis is just something that you get with old age when your bones like wear and tear down. But really, it's something that is caused in your genes. That can be caused many ways. And There's juvenile arthritis, which is where a lot of young people can get at a very young age, and I don't think a lot of people don't realize that it affects many, many children too, actually over 300,000. So,
And Nishi, this experience, as we said, with your grandmother has, motivated you and your sister to really get involved and try to get the word out. And part of that is your participation in an upcoming kind of awareness and fundraising
Mhm.
event. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Walk to Cure Arthritis is coming up Saturday, May 17th, and we encourage everyone to come out and join us because it is just going to be it's an event filled with hope and filled with fun, and we get to take steps to advocate for arthritis and hopefully fund and find cures. And you can join actually on www.walktocurearthritis.org and make sure to join Team Shaw, SHAH, and you can see us out there and you can bring your dog as well because we will too.
Oh, excellent.
Mhm.
Dogs are welcome.
Yes.
And we should say this is at the Jacksonville Arboretum and Botanical Gardens,
Yes.
9 a.m. on Saturday, May 17th. Well, it's great the work that you're doing. Thanks for your advocacy, and thanks for coming on today.
Oh, thank you so
Thank you
much.
for having
Thank
us.
you.
All right. Thank you for listening. That's our program. If you have feedback or suggestions, you can send either to First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. And if you missed anything, you can catch our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock tonight, or you can find our entire archive on your favorite podcast platform. Join us tomorrow when we talk to Jacksonville Sheriff's Office Commander Erica Weber about her path to leadership in law enforcement. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Florida Eye Specialists and WJCT present Seeing the Future, game-changing innovations in early detection and transformative cataract surgery with Dr. Omar Ghayasadeen at a free lunch and learn on May 9th. Registration at wjct.org/events.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Solar's been a success story in the U.S., but the Trump administration is all about oil and gas. How does the sun fit into its energy plan? From WAMU and NPR in Washington, this is 1A. Hi, I'm Nyla Boodoo in for Jen White. So far, the story around solar has been bright, but the outlook is uncertain. From tariffs and supply chain problems to companies folding and government policies changing, solar could be in for a tough ride soon. We hear what steps the industry is taking to remain one of the biggest sources of clean energy in the U.S. And we'd love your stories too. Have you gone solar? Email 1a@wamu.org. But first, to the Vatican. The conclave is underway. How long might it be until we see white smoke?
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Roman Catholic cardinals have gathered at the Vatican to undertake the selection of the next pope. NPR's Jason DeRose reports on the papal conclave.
The order of the day. A morning mass in St. Peter's Basilica, the only event that's public, then a gathering of the cardinal electors clad in their scarlet and white robes in the Vatican's Pauline Chapel. A procession from there to the Sistine Chapel while singing the Litany of Saints with the refrain, "Save us, Lord." Once inside, under Michelangelo's Creation fresco, the cardinals sing the ancient hymn, Veni Creator Spiritus. They swear an oath, hands touching the Gospels. A master of ceremonies declares extra omnes, sending out those not involved in the election. Cardinals hear one final sermon, then the voting begins. Jason DeRose, NPR News, Rome.
India has fired missiles at several targets in Pakistan. They're the most significant strikes in more than 50 years. India is blaming Pakistan for a militant attack last month that killed 26